everybody for joining us this morning, and welcome to our LA County Library virtual event, Creative Career Paths, Publicity and Marketing in Entertainment. I'm Catherine Adams at LA County Library, and I'll be your host today. Creative Career Paths is a series exploring careers in the entertainment, film, TV, and media industries. In today's program, director and producer Kimberly Browning will have a conversation with Sony Ede Williams. First, I'd like to introduce Kimberly Browning, who is facilitating our conversation. Kimberly is a filmmaker based in LA and is the founder and festival director of Hollywood Shorts Film Festival, which launched in 1998. She is an associate short film programmer at Tribeca Film Festival and a senior programmer at Catalyst Content Festival. She has been the executive producer of HBO Access since 2015 and is now part of the new Warner Media Access programs team, developing emerging writers and directors in episodic television. Sony Ede Williams has spent over 25 years in national publicity, managing all phases of marketing strategy for films distributed by Paramount Pictures, Walt Disney Studios, Universal Pictures, Warner Brothers, Amazon, and a host of others. She began her career at Paramount, developing campaigns across the Viacom banner from DreamWorks Animation, Nickelodeon Movies, MTV Films, and DreamWorks Pictures. She launched SYE Publicity in 2008, crafting award-winning campaigns catering to the urban and faith consumer, where she served as the agency of record for Universal Pictures. She has held roles as Director of Marketing, Worldwide Publicity and Promotions at 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment, and served as Vice President, Faith and Family at Rogers & Cohen before relaunching her consulting firm, SY Strategies and PR, in 2018. Sonia has also held membership with the Los Angeles branch of the Council of Urban Professionals and served 8 years as an award committee member of the Local 600 Publicists Union. She is a nominating member of the NAACP Image Awards and was inducted into the Motion Picture Academy of Arts and Sciences PR branch in 2017. This year, she served as show publicist for the 94th Academy Awards as the first woman of color after working the Oscars telecast for over 20 years. Recent film credits include Black Panther, Coming to America, My Name is Polly Murray, The Good Lord Bird, Antebellum, Harriet, Just Mercy, 12 Years a Slave, Avengers Infinity War, and Endgame. Upcoming films include Till, based on the life and legacy of Emmett Till, and the biopic Shirley, starring Regina King as Shirley Chisholm, the first Black woman elected to Congress who ran for president of the United States in 1972. And with that, I'll hand it over to Kimberly to start us off.
Thank you, Catherine. Welcome, Sony. Thank you so much for being with us today.
You're so welcome, and I'm so sorry. I'm talking to you from inside my car.
You know, you're busy, and we really appreciate you, even in the middle of an event going on, making time for us. It's so
Thank you.
Special for us to have your experience and your institutional knowledge and your great back behind the scenes stories that I know are going to help inspire and give some enlightenment to our audience. So really excited. I've known you for a really, really, really long time, and our careers have ascended together, and we've had the joy of being able to work together. And so I really appreciate the magnitude and the wealth of this is such a wide category. This is the first time we're delving into this topic in the semester, and publicity and marketing covers such a wide range of career opportunities and jobs themselves. And so I'm excited about people here want to know, how do I take that first step? How do I get to an opportunity that I can say my first yes to? So I like to start the conversation by just recounting what your journey was. And, did you create your own opportunity? Did somebody inspire you? How did you get to a place that you figured out what a publicist was, and it was a job you might be interested in doing?
Oh, well, thank you. First of all, it's a pleasure to be with you and all the students. And Catherine, thank you for the opportunity as well to be with your students and your colleagues today. Quite honestly, Kimberly, and I don't even know if I've shared this with you before, I fell into publicity. I always wanted to be a court stenographer. And funny enough, I thought when I was a court stenographer and going to school for that right out of college, that the best way to do that was to learn all of the legal analytics that I needed to learn there. So I looked for jobs in legal offices. I worked with attorneys, anything that I could do. I typed depositions. I listened to meetings and things, anything I could do to gain knowledge in the legal field. However, when I started doing it, I really felt like, and we've all been there, where we're moving down one path and we go, not quite loving this, not quite loving this. But I did get an opportunity to work at Paramount Pictures behind the scenes in what they call the Ajacoa project. And the Ajacoa was typing contracts for day players that played on a lot of television shows and films. And so I got very knowledgeable to learn when the talent was casting, how much they were going to be paid, what they were going to do for a particular role. And from there, I started working for the head of business affairs. And I loved it. And out of the blue, one day, someone approached me about a job in publicity and said, I think you'd be really great. And I was like, well, why? And they were just like, I think you'd be really great for publicity because of your skill set here in business affairs. You already know the casting, you already know what it takes behind the scenes, and just go interview for the job. I got the job, and then from there, I worked for the head of the publicity department. So that's kind of how I. That's a very long answer to how I kind of fell into publicity, because I didn't know at the time. I was just a secretary, and I scheduled his calls, and I listened to calendar invites, and I listened and watched casting and things of that nature, and just listened, watched, and learned.
Right? Those are the three most important things. I love your journey because it's most people's journey. And I think that is a mysterious piece of information that everybody thinks there's this magical carpet that everybody's got to get onto, and it's not.
No.
100 doors. Um, can we back up and talk a little bit about when you were in high school, what your aspiration was? Did you have one, and you chose to go to study post high school? So just giving people an insight on what you chose to study and what skill set did you deliver still to even be able to pursue court stenographer, you know?
Well, for court stenographer, I was a really great typist. And I have to say that too was something instilled to me by my mom. She was like, you should always learn how to type. It was just a skill she just thought
Me
all of her
too.
daughters should should learn. And I was like, oh mom, I don't need to learn how to type. You should know how to type. And what was really cool about it is when I did take typing, I actually really loved it and I became really good at it. And I can still type over 80 words a minute. I'm very proud of that. But from that, I also really always liked to read. I also really liked the creative side of things in school. I was always participating in arts and crafts and things of that nature. So I would say I was always more interested in the arts than I was from a serious standpoint. I knew I didn't want to be anything like in the medical profession, or I knew I didn't want to do anything um, in mathematicians or anything like that. I was always interested from a creative side. So
That's
when
really
I
important.
I did start off at El Camino College. I grew up here in Gardena, California, and I went to Gardena High School. And then from there, I transferred to UCLA. But again, always knew I was interested in the arts, and I just really fell into um, publicity.
That's great. You know, my mother ruined my senior year, making me take that 8 o'clock typing class. I was
Yeah,
so upset with her for so long. And when I got my first job at Disney, I got it because was good on computers because was the
yes,
best typist around. So I adapted when computers, that's how old we are. Computers were just
I
coming strong.
know,
Uh,
right?
but it gave me a skill set, and I got hired onto an episodic television show because I knew how to work the computer. Because
Isn't that wonderful? Hmm.
and
Very much so.
especially as women of color at that time, that was a real wide open gate of just having practical skill sets um,
Hmm.
makes you more valuable sometimes than people anticipate. So I relate to that a lot. When
Absolutely.
you had the enlightenment of once you got into the publicity department, coming through an admin space, at some point you were watching, you were listening, and you were learning, which are always the key. What did you realize you needed to know, and how did you pursue finding a way to learn what you feel like you needed to grow in to be able to grow in this department?
Well, I can honestly say when I was in the Agricola department learning the contracts, that helped tremendously in understanding the business side of what we do, right? There's always a contract, there's always something there. However, when I started working for the vice president of publicity, I began to understand the tactics involved in marketing television and marketing films and knowing what to look for. Um, I also took writing courses, um, really important. Learned how to read his calendar, learned what was key after casting, how you position something, how you positioned a story, how you looked at a particular movie and decided who it was for. Who was the consumer behind this movie? Was the movie for children? Was the movie for adults? Was the movie for a tweens or teens? Looking at a script and understanding that. And I really, the more I was curious, the more information he gave me to pursue my curiosity and to really help him to be a part of meetings I normally wouldn't have been part of, but just to really understand and learn the business. Reading the trades, very important. And maybe you can
It's,
speak to
it's
that
yeah, can
more
you?
so than me, and sharing with our audience exactly what they are. They are like the Bible of the industry. They tell everything from soup to nuts. So understanding that and reading that and learning those and all of that helped me in my quest. I was just a secretary, but I was hungry. I was good at my job. I love to read and write, and I can type. So just understanding that, I do want to say, I feel like sometimes our millennials get very fast in wanting to move forward. I was a secretary for 5 years with him, and I really learned the ins and outs of what my job was.
I don't even know if they use the title secretary anymore. It could
I
be,
don't think so.
I think it's admin assistant. Sometimes it'll be a junior coordinator, but these all are entry level positions that can put you in the space to observe. And I think it sounds to me like maybe he was your first mentor. Being in a space where somebody who can teach you identifies that you have potential and invests opening up doors for you, inviting you to sit in on meetings in client rooms. um, how did you comport yourself so that that was recognized that you were hungry, ambitious? um,
He just allowed me to participate, not other than no more than being a fly on the wall, just listening in, learning in, whether it was with a producer, whether he was pitching a certain story with someone at a magazine, whether he was talking to colleagues or different individuals within Paramount Pictures, because I don't know if I said it was at Paramount Pictures, but there's a lot that goes into PR. You take a little bit of every department, and whatever goes into making a particular film or making a particular campaign. He just allowed me to absorb it like a sponge. And then after those said meetings, I would just sit and talk to him and ask.
um, that's so fascinating. I think we could do 4 classes on the departments that are within publicity and marketing, and we're going to talk. And Sony is really exceptional because you have worked at both, and
Hmm.
um, and under the marketing of a big company, these departments of publicity and marketing are separate, and they do separate things, but they have to work totally.
Together.
They have to work together. And so I want to break down a little bit about how you identified of all of these different sectors that goes from live events, what we call activations now. Um, Part of marketing is where are we going to put all of the trailers? What stations and what websites are we going to promote this movie? How are we going to buy space in the theater before the movie for which trailer? which trailer are we going to purchase in? So Iron Man's going to open. Okay, I'm a studio. Which movies do we have coming up that we know we should advertise prior to Iron Man because they're going to have our audience? And then all of the angles that come into figuring out publicity. So how did you identify and turn into action? Like, oh, I think I like this pre-pro part. I like production. I like the publicity of a film. And then how did you navigate your way from secretary to the next step of your career?
So how I navigated my way from secretary to the next step is, again, just being able to learn as much as I could, hone in on my writing skills. I think that's very important if you want to be a publicist. Not that you just have to be the best writer, but you do have to write a little bit. You also have to really enjoy talking to people because you're on that phone all day and you're pitching and you're telling everyone you can talk to, whether it is newspaper, magazine, television show, about your product, whatever that is, you are selling in that product. So at Paramount back in the day, they had different types of publicists. They had publicists that just spoke to the television shows. I was in charge of online marketing and radio. And so all of my outlets were just radio outlets around the country, radio outlets on school campuses, top radio outlets such as a Kiss FM or a Power, or if you lived in Los Angeles, a KJLH, or any of the other syndicated long before there were Sirius XMs and things of that
Right.
nature. My job was to watch the movie, find the compelling parts about the movie, and then discuss them with someone at the radio station or the online outlet to interest them enough to want to speak to someone about the movie, whether it was the star, whether it was the co-star, whether it was the director,
Yeah.
whether it was the writer, any person that was a part of that film. My job was to sell that movie to the online editor and to the radio producer to get them to what they call do a break on that movie. And you always wanted it as also what they call time of release, which was the 2 weeks leading up to when the movie was coming into theaters. So it's a coordinated effort with newspaper, with magazines, with radio, with television. All of it is a coordinated effort that culminates to a movie launch date.
And I think people don't even realize when you're dealing with the print part, they are making those editorial decisions 3 to 4 months in advance because they have
exactly.
And how now with the advent of new media and bloggers and influencers being just as important for some campaigns, the timeline between making sure all these things come out in that 10-day period, how has that, when you started realizing you were good at this, was that part of navigating?
It changed. It has changed. It has changed quite a bit, and the bandwidth of it now is very different than the way it was before. Because, as I said, there were different publicists that handled different parts. So there were publicists that handled, to your point, what we call long lead, and long lead are the magazines that we had back in the day. Now, when you think about a magazine cover, easily you can think of now a Vogue cover or an O cover, or these really great magazines back in the day. But if you really take the time to hone in on your skills and thinking about a magazine cover, it has to be pitched 6 months in advance. So you'd have to know when that movie was coming out 6 months in advance, go and say, okay, I want the December cover because my movie is going to be a December blockbuster. Then you'd have to find the compelling points about that movie, go all the way to the editor, pitch what you think or what you project will be really good at that time, and then work your way backwards. So you're always doing that. With a long lead, it was magazine. With a mid lead, it was newspapers. and then with short lead were print and radio pieces. So
Yeah.
I got to be really, really good at just understanding the timelines of all that. You also have to think as a studio publicist, marketing TV, that you're not only just working on one movie, you're working on the whole slate of movies throughout the year.
And for a year, for a typical studio in the last 20 years, like a Warner or a Disney, you're talking 12 to 20 films sometimes.
Exactly, exactly. And although it takes quite a long time for the movie to be made and to come to the fruition of it, you are always thinking about what is your release campaign. You're always looking at your release date. So my office, when you walked in, looked like at any different time, you're looking at a projection of, okay, what's coming out in the next 3 months? What's coming out in the next 6 months? What am I projecting a year from now? And what are we going to be doing? What's our tentpole summer movie? What's our 4th of July movie? What's the movie for family that everyone is going to see this year? So you're always projecting, and that's how you're working back towards that timeline. It was really fun though. When you understand the dynamics of it, it's really, really fun.
Yeah, definitely fun. And the thing about that department is also it's great for people who love to have a different day every day.
Exactly.
Because you just are working with so many different people. You'll work with this team for a year and then a whole another group of people. And that leads to, you know, you've been really clear about writing, being able to write a press release, being able to describe a film, and then being able to have verbal communication strengths. Uh, so people that are really confident in talking to lots of different kind of people that have natural curiosity, I think are really,
Right.
because they like to ask the right questions. Um, some people are stronger at writing, then maybe not as comfortable wanting to necessarily. People that come from sales are really great at pitching, right? Um,
Right.
and the great thing is on these bigger teams, at these bigger companies, there's room for these specialties, I want to say.
Exactly.
I mean,
There's the sales and marketing team.
mhm,
There is a team there's a digital team now where we didn't have that before, right? So a
yeah,
lot of that with newspapers and magazines going away, that has taken on a whole other type of skill set digitally
yeah.
where people are in that space. Also with influencers, you use influencers a lot more than you do, but there's still something to be said about a traditional pitch, something to be said about watching a movie, finding what excites you about that movie, and getting in a room and just brainstorming with 10 or 12 other people about who you think the movie is for, what you think is really fun, and what's going to sell that movie to the consumer.
And I love that um, there's an innate knowledge that's coming up with this generation that grew up in the digital space, uh, where they're becoming even more valuable to traditional PR houses and PR departments because there's just an organic way that they understand how
Hmm.
a digital calendar works, a digital editorial calendar works. They understand that the inner vocabulary of the value of having your start on a Twitch, like pitching Twitch and getting somebody who's really doing episodic on Instagram is a different way of talking to the editor at People Magazine. And
Absolutely.
and I love that the world is expanding more opportunities for those who feel like they're coming from unconventional spaces.
I think I couldn't agree with you more. I think the way that a movie is marketing now, it lends itself to a variety of different expertise. So you don't have to come up in the way that we came up, right? There are so many different opportunities now and different ways to market a film, whether it's digitally, whether it's with an influencer, whether you feel that you're good at print, whether you're good at radio, whether you're a booker. Again, it all comes together cohesively to market the film. And that's what's really cool about it. You don't have to feel like there's not a space for you. There is. It's whatever you want it to be. And that's the cool thing about it too, because there's so many different genres that people have now. And in my bio that Catherine read, at one point I was doing faith and family. that was films that were specifically for, Nickelodeon titles or titles for tweens or titles that were not R-rated movies, because when you're working with films that are R-rated, you can't necessarily promote them the same way to children than you can with family. So Disney is a big proponent of that. So there are films that are just action films. There are films that are just, again, faith-based. There are films that are very important to everyone now in the LGBTQ space and what they call multicultural. And I came up in a time where we didn't have a lot of those opportunities, and it's really expanded over the last 10 years that I became an expert at what they call multicultural marketing. And that was, instead of going your traditional route where you went to the New York Times, the LA Times, USA Today, Time, and Newsweek, it was my job to think of the consumer of how am I reaching La Opinion? How am I reaching BET? How am I reaching Telemundo? How am I reaching Essence Magazine? Where am I reaching these different ethnicities and different cultures to tell the same story, but a different consumer? Because everyone loves everything, right? So you're not just looking at it from a bird's eye view. Everyone loves movies. What are you finding about the movie to that specific consumer?
Exactly. And I think that's a perfect launching point to kind of the next silo, if I could call it that, which is people who were really great with people.
Mm.
Because the press junket is another huge part in the timeline of a campaign for a film that publicists, and there are some publicists that really specialize in the junket and in taking, and that has a unique skill set in being able to be the whisperer of really successful filmmakers and artists that can have PR, image branding concerns, and you need them to do different things. And then people don't realize when you see those little chunks of Entertainment Magazine that the publicist has set up the hotel and the food because and which reporters are going to get in there first. So tell us more about a junket, how that works, and navigating. Publicists had to be on the forefront of when COVID hit, how to innovate and get the same work done, getting your celebrity or your star of your film or your film's director to have that same impact and to be able to connect the dots with the people you wanted to promote the movie when you couldn't put them in a room with somebody. I mean,
let's
change the game.
Let's start with what a junket is first and foremost. And a press junket is when you bring all of the people that were involved in the movie together. So you're bringing your stars together, and you're bringing your director, your producer, and maybe a creative team together with the people that are going to help promote the movie. So let's using Los Angeles as a template. In every major market across the 50 contiguous states, we have a Sam Rubin. We have, individuals.
Sam Rubin is the entertainment
editor at KTLA.
KTLA, right?
Correct. So you have morning shows in every major market, and when you're looking at the landscape of all that, what you do is you invite all of those entertainment editors and correspondents to one hotel, and they come together and you rotate the talent with them to talk about their movie. They then take their entertainment packages back to their hometowns and they put together their piece on the film. That is done ad nauseum with every single movie, with every talent. It's sometimes press junkets used to be 4 days long sometimes, or press junkets used to be, I shouldn't say 4 days long, but we had a day just for domestic TV. Then we had a day for national TV. National TV being the ETs, the Access, the morning shows, the evening shows, Good Morning America, Today Show. Then you had the same thing for international. So international had days, and domestic TV head days. And you brought all of the talent together and they talked about their movie. What we had to do, and it was a long and tedious schedule that everyone had to follow, and everyone and the talent talked about their movie over and over and over again for each market across the country. When COVID hit, obviously we couldn't go anywhere. So how do we do anything now without a Zoom, right? But some of the people that coordinated these junkets got very clever in figuring out how do we continue to publicize this when we can't be with one another. And hence taking everything that we did in person and making it into a press junket that was virtual. So basically, you did the same thing, you coordinated the same times. However, everyone was just in their homes or in their living rooms and speaking to the talent and going through the same thing that you did when you were all together. You missed everyone, but you did the same work. I hope I explained that.
You did. You explained it really well. And so, one of the things I find that publicists that are really good at the junket, the campaign process, are very, very good at diplomacy skills. People that speak multiple languages, because now you can
Hmm.
fly, are really valuable in this space. But most importantly, organizationally, patience, people who are really patient and people who understand the fundamentals of just being organized. But the publicity is also, these media outlets are really competitive. So you're also navigating people who all want to be treated the best and first, and keeping them happy while accomplishing how you want things to go. So there's people who are really good at just managerial skills that are used to navigating big teams of people, have the skill set I think that applies to this space really well. And then people who are having bad days, and actors who are not necessarily wanting to be there, and how to navigate talking to people who just are in a different place in life, right? You've got to deal with two people who maybe haven't seen each other since they shot this movie 3 years ago.
Right.
And getting them compelled to really want to tap back in and support this film or filmmaker. And I think that takes a lot of verbal skill set and a lot of people skills.
I agree. And I would say, although there are a lot of different facets to being a publicist, I would say a publicist is someone that you really have to enjoy speaking to people. You really have to enjoy being out there. If you're a little introverted, being in publicity may not be the role you might want to take. There are different assets of it, but you might want to think about that, because it is really putting yourself out there. It is really constantly being on the phone, constantly pitching, constantly talking to editors, constantly doing that. And so if you feel that that's something you may not want to do, you may want to think about a different area in marketing that suits your skill set a little bit better.
I love that. I think that's great advice. I think people who come from the concierge arts do
Hmm.
well in this part of space, that are really good at face to face. And
Hmm.
that's why I love the marketing departments, because the marketing component are great. And there's a lot of opportunity for people who don't necessarily love that more. They might feel it's too aggressive, or
Hmm.
initiating conversation is not necessarily something that they love doing. That this side of marketing is really perfect for that.
That is very true.
Yeah. So the next, to me, the fourth column are the awards. And there are some publicists that specialize in the award campaign season, particularly for film and for television. So that's everything from Oscars, Spirit Awards, Golden Globes, Emmys, and Peabody were in that, you know. So, and there are some publicists that just have their own firms that specialize in just awards. So, can you talk a little bit about how that works, why it's separate? What do you think are the skill sets of people who either in-house at a company, or people who have their own, like a Joshua Jackson or Jason Joshua, who does like the Academy qualifying festival runs and things like that, or the MPRMs, right? Can you
Yeah,
talk a little bit about what you think are the strengths of somebody that would be well suited for that space?
Well, I first think that people need to know there are all different types of publicists. And while we're specifically talking about TV and film publicists, there are publicists that work with clientele that just handle, they are what's called personal publicists. And they work at big firms that handle really important celebrities, right? And sometimes that may be your skill set. That I never wanted to handle personal publicity, and part of the reason I think is just because I came up in an era where I was always a studio publicist, and I felt like changing in the middle of my career didn't suit me. I had really learned the basics of 101 of being a studio publicist. And just as I was talking about earlier, how you looked at a film and you projected, the time frame of that film coming out from soup to nuts. There are also publicists that specialize in book publicity. There's also publicists that specialize in music publicity. So starting there, it's all different once you find out your role and where you want to be. As we get into awards and things of that nature, there are publicists that are actually honing in on their skills, just like I have honed in on mine, where you're looking for the best performances. You're looking at a film that is getting critical acclaim at these award shows, and people that are if I can explain it correctly, where they just have the accolades and the tenacity to know and to work with critics and awards to understand all of that. And so the people that do that have honed in on a certain type of skill set where they're working with the movie publicists internally to highlight the best of the best, I guess I should say, highlight and hone in on the best of the best. So uh, it's all a very different type of of skill set, I should say, in knowing and projecting that type of work.
That's really, really helpful. So those are kind of to me when for those of our audience that are looking to get into the business and start their first steps, these are to me the big columns to kind of focus on, and being understanding what you like and understanding
Hmm.
what you want is really important so that you can focus because it's such a wide world. And so looking for those open doors in these columns, just being able to define them will help you recognize an opportunity that might be right for you. So we're
I
going to
agree.
talk a little bit about accessibility, first job opportunities, internship, the different layers of how you ascend from an entry level starter job to head of publicity. And I think there are two lanes. One is being a staff publicist is a full time job at either a publicity house or an entertainment company, or this is also a huge world for freelancers. There are a ton of freelance
Hmm.
publicists like you that at different points of your career had your own shop. They hung their own shingle. Um, there are some publicists that don't want to necessarily part of the day is publicity, but part of the day is running a small business and
Right.
all the things that come with payroll and accounting and running a small business. And so, really understanding, do you have a team that you can pull together that you trust? And can you raise the financing to be able to launch your own shop? Or do you have the heart of a freelancer where you work for all these places? Because every campaign along the way virtually staffed. So when things are in their heyday, they're going to pick up more freelancers. And so there's always opportunity, but not the lifestyle of a freelancer is not for everybody.
That's
So,
very true.
so can you talk a little bit about, assistant? Most people come in as an intern, then as an assistant. Do you use the term junior publicist or account? Can you talk a little bit just about
The structure of it all. I'm a big proponent, I should say, for your audience. I am a very big proponent in loving what you do. And I think I am, not to sound like Oprah, but I feel like if you take the time to identify your strengths and what you really like to do, you're only going to excel at it. Because if you enjoy what you're doing and you really, really, really authentically like your job and you don't feel like it's work, that only makes you better. So with that being said, there are so many different types of roles in marketing, as Kimberly has said, that whether you feel like you're a really great writer, whether you feel like you can influence the culture at all, whether you feel like there's a job where you're pitching, or whether you feel that there are certain niches for you. Once you find that, there's the sky's the limit to what you want to do. So from a role or from a standpoint of starting at a studio, you are going to come in on an entry level. You are going to come in and be asked to hone a calendar, make a calendar, identify key pitch points, sit in on pitch meetings, things of that nature. Just very basic publicity items that you would list to do. Talk to the client, understand what they do and what they want, and then come up with a plan of attack, a plan of action per se. If you are working for a small boutique agency, you're still going to do those same type of I would say exercises. They're just a little more amplified from a studio perspective. Um, and then what else did you ask me? I'm sorry. The difference
Yeah.
between
I just, what are the first entry level jobs that is there an apprentice process that publicity companies use, or is it more find an internship for production? A lot of the categories we've examined this semester, the production assistant pathway is the road to entry. That's not necessarily the entry. There's not necessarily a lot of production assistants that move into this space or have a natural access point. But I feel like internships, what are those first jobs that get advertised that people should be on the lookout for?
for publicity.
Yeah.
So for publicity is really understanding the market and understanding what type of publicist you want, I think would be really key first. Knowing, as we talked about, the trades, the Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Deadline, the Wrap, understanding how getting those, reading them online or getting copies going to the newsstand, and just trying to understand that landscape. They cover everything in Hollywood, from casting to when a movie is starting production, to when a movie is wrapped and a movie is about to start, a marketing campaign. So if you can kind of understand that a little bit and understand that that's a role you want to go into. Also, if you want to work for a specific, I should say, a genre, is there a specific genre?
Sci-fi.
Or yes, what genre do you want to work in publicity? And
Do you like
again,
comedy?
is it comedy? Is it horror? Is it uh, uh, rom-com? Whatever that is, trying to understand the lane that you want to be in, of course, all of that. And then just taking the time to, after you learn that landscape, finding like-minded people that are going to help you, work with you, and give you an opportunity to learn, look, watch, uh,
Yeah.
pay attention to who's writing those type of articles that really move you, or pay attention to the bylines and learn who the entertainment writers are. Start paying attention to, when you look at the LA Times and if you read the calendar section, who's writing that piece. And if you find a writer that you really like, see what else they've done. Kind of look at it like that. When you follow a particular celebrity and you see that they have a movie coming out, try to pay attention to what else that they've done and try to see and connect the dots of a campaign. Again, there are only 12 times that a magazine is out each year. And when you look at that and you look at the trajectory of that, kind of go back and say, okay, Lady Gaga is on the cover of Vogue, and she also did the Tonight Show, and she also did a morning show, and she's also doing this. Just kind of pay attention and connect the dots and just see if that's something that would interest you. So I think just starting there and then being able to, again, you always want to be able to write just a little bit. Pay attention to the type of articles that are being written and what they're talking about and things of that nature. And then putting yourself or surrounding yourself with like-minded people that want to move into that. So I think all of that plays a role into being a really great publicist.
That's so helpful and just so clear and broken down. So let's talk a little bit about um, when you are putting a team together, when you are hiring. What
Hmm.
what do you feel, especially a younger first couple of years, that they need going into an interview? After their resume, do you think they should have samples of their, do you have expect that they're going to have a portfolio and what would be in that? What do you like to see to help determine both first we'll talk about logistics. What actual materials and assets do you want to see from a first timer and entry level person to help you determine if you're going to hire them?
For me, I'm always looking because of, like I said before, a publicist is all about facing that consumer, how they are projecting themselves with not only talent, but the people that they are around, the people that they're going to be talking to, how they are talking and portraying uh, a product, right?
So even the
Uh,
interview, that FaceTime one-on-one, the vibes.
it's very, very, very important because how they're projecting and what they want to talk about and what they're passionate about, they're selling your product. So you're going to look for those skills. You're going to look to see how they are handling themselves there. You don't want to be in a celebrity space all the time, but you want to always be professional, right? I also am looking for someone not only that's poised, but someone that does have really great writing skills, someone that can present, someone that
But what do you
can
want to
look,
see? Is it if somebody is starting out and they haven't written a lot for their school paper, or they haven't, but if they have a
but they
blog.
have a lot of ideas. I'm looking for someone that is always thinking out of the box because we're in a world where anything goes now. We're in a world now where anything can happen, right? And so I'm looking for someone to say, okay, we're going to pitch this film. Tell me how you would do that. So I'm looking for someone that is thinking out of the box. I always want
And on
someone
their
to come in an idea. No idea is too big or too small. What is it that compels you with this movie? Why do you think this is going to be a good movie? And tell me how you would sell this movie. So I'm
yeah.
always looking for someone with a really great idea and how we can get to a certain consumer, how from A to Z. What is your approach,
Yeah.
right?
Unique, out of the box, innovative people. I think that's a really valuable skill set in this day and age that clients and brands really really want. Are
And you
people?
need to be organized,
Mhm.
obviously. You need to be on time. You need to always present yourself in a manner, again, that's professional. So all those things matter to me more so than being a great writer.
Okay.
Because am I going to look at you and if I'm going to say, we have a press junket at 12 o'clock, what time are you going to be there? Are you going to be organized? Are you going to be presented uh, and, and, and be ready to go and come with really great ideas? So that's what I'm always looking for.
Yeah, I love it. That's so helpful. I think this is you want to build confidence and have the trust of a lot of people in this space.
Hmm.
So it is one of the things where how you present yourself um, does make a difference. And I don't care what the clothes are. It's just that you are presenting yourself a certain way. You got
Correct.
to have us, and so I think that is important to know how to dress appropriately. This isn't where a tank top with no bra is necessarily in the workspace, right? But it's a
Correct.
cool thing because jeans and good kicks rock. If you've got a certain personal style and it's a punk rock style, we're down.
That's
Just
fine.
knowing if you're at an event that you have the sense to not have open toe shoes and flip flops on, right? So I think we're looking for people that just kind of have some of those fundamentals that are comfortable in that space.
Agreed.
Understanding that you're representing a movie, representing a brand, and the people that you want to influence their behavior need to trust you. And so the way you present, the way you speak to people, being respectful and being patient when other people are not is really, really, to me, really valuable.
I think that's very key because sometimes you're delivering bad news. Not everything is great. So it's always keeping your composure. It's always being, putting your best foot forward, even when you could have, angry people that are upset for whatever reason. It's always you have the composure to deal with that. Or you may have an angry client that may not necessarily agree with your strategy, but always being, composed.
Don't get to yell back. It's a client driven business.
Exactly.
The word patience comes to mind again.
Exactly.
I say the word a lot because to me it is diplomacy and patience is such an important skill set in this department.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about people that want to aspire. I love the fact that we are in the age of the internet and we're in the age that you can go online and go to the library and really get some of the fundamentals that we had to have our mentors teach us, which is how to write a press release. We encourage you to go to every major production company, whether it's A24, the Academy has Oscars.org, and look,
Mm-hmm.
there's a link that says media room or press room.
Mm-hmm.
Google press releases, Iron Man, whatever movie, and you'll see who
They're
the
all
sources
there.
are. They're all publicly facing now. And the most important thing is you will always see the publicist's name on there. You can start to figure out who's making the stuff that you dig and you feel like you could champion. And that can be an alternate route to reaching out and looking at their Instagram and looking at their social media and how does that
Mm-hmm.
person present publicly to figure out, is that somebody I want to apply to? And so connecting somebody there's a detective spirit in a publicist. Every publicist I know that's really good figure stuff out. They're
You have to
self-starters.
figure it out.
You got to figure it
And
out.
that's what's really great. I love that you say that because just as I said, you want somebody, it's not necessarily coming in a box with everything that's right there. You need the tenacity to market whatever it is you're marketing in a passionate and compelling way.
Yeah.
You really do, And so, and it is looking, if you, for instance, if Marvel is your gig, right? If you like Marvel movies, you will start to notice there are sometimes that same publicist that is putting out those releases, that is writing those keen releases. There is a strategy to it. There is a boilerplate to it. There is a way that Marvel movies enter with the consumer.
Marketplace. That's right. And so when you think about, well, how to sending my resume to jobs at WarnerBrothersDiscovery.com, we all know that feels like you're just shouting into the void. So,
Exactly.
So think about the fact that all of the people that tend to like a Marvel movie come from the comic book space. So where do comic book people like to hang out? They like to go to Comic Cons. So either volunteering or trying to find an internship at a Comic Con that always needs help puts you in the space where you can build relationships with the publicists of every movie that's doing a booth in Studio H. Right?
That is very true.
And so I'm excited. So we want to hear a little bit more, Sony, about when you're building a team, can you talk, and this is a general, we know it varies, but who are the critical members of a team on a basic campaign? And what are their job titles?
So when you say building a team on a critical campaign, are you talking from my perspective, or are you talking from a studio team?
Let's do from your perspective, because there's so many times that you are doing things under your own banner where you're helping films like mine.
Which was a pleasure. But I actually, from my perspective, yeah. I have 2 or 3 people that work with me all the time. I always have a writer that works with me. I always have a second publicist that works with me, because if for whatever reason I'm pulled on someone else, there's someone in my instance. Kimberly knows my number one person is Kavita Smith. She knows exactly what I know. So if I'm not available for any time, the client knows that there's someone else there that always knows is going to always keep the ball rolling. But what I think is important nowadays, that I do want to emphasize with studios, is that in addition to our silo teams, right, reaching the multicultural lens. There's also a team that handles digital, all things with all of the platforms, whether it's
That
TikTok,
called
whether
new
it's
media.
Twitch.
Does
Yeah,
new media fit
it's
in that
all that.
space? When we see the word
Exactly.
new media, that's what that means.
So we have a digital team there. We have a faith team there.
So
We
if you're
have
somebody who loves doing social media, you're good at TikTok, that could be an opportunity to get into.
exactly. There is someone there that handles just it could just be a festival. So we all come together. And to Kimberly's point, there is a touch point and a role for each person, for each individual thing that we do. So the person that's handling the festivals per se, that individual has their eyes on everything that's happening from January through December. Okay, you have a movie coming out July 4th. What festivals are you going to hit? So that person is going to have a voice and talk about things. Then you're going to have someone in media that, particularly an ad buys, what are they going to be? That person is going to come. So everyone comes together. And at the end of the day, you may have 25 or 30 people in a room I like to use Disney because Disney does that, just that. Everyone has a place. Everyone has a point. And when they bring it all together, this is how the movie comes together. So it's really wonderful.
I hope that that encourages people that there are a lot of different
There's so
languages
many
there.
paths.
Yeah, so many paths.
Absolutely.
Many of the paths are also covered by the local 600, which can
Yes.
be interesting because most people know the local 600 is the cinematographer's guild. The publicity
Is
union
under that too.
also in that same cohort. And so going to the local 600's website, they have resources and it's local600.org, I believe. And
Hmm.
and looking at who the publicists are that are working on the project. Sometimes they have seminars, especially during COVID. They've been hosting Zoom sessions where you can read and watch and email. Hey, I saw how you did this. A
Exactly.
publicist loves somebody who takes the initiative, and I'll take somebody who takes the initiative and can find that sweet spot between being overbearing and obnoxious to being waiting for somebody to give them permission. And but there's just something innately natural that I don't think you can teach people. And if you know you got that kind of game, getting an email honestly from somebody like that will break through the clutter. You just have to make sure that you've done the research to know who the right person is to reach out to, right? Because if you've got somebody working in the sci-fi space and you want to promote Secession and work at HBO, you can't
That's
randomly
not, yeah,
people.
exactly. And
Yeah,
that's really smart to say because just as we've talked about all the different types of publicists, there are people that handle those beats at all of the magazines. So there's someone that's working in beauty, there's someone that's covering a particular genre that,
mm,
so understanding and knowing those nuances as well really helps.
absolutely. I think people that are experts in any field,
Hmm.
there is a film or television show that's looking to put somebody on their team. If you look at Sex in the City, and even now in the reboot, promoting Patricia Field and the impact that that show had on fashion means that their publicity team needed to know fashion and the fashion magazines and the fashion designers. So the people that worked on that were people who came from the fashion space, who
Right.
understood how to talk about it and understood how to recognize in that media space what was going to be interesting to the consumers and the editors that are covering those subjects. So if you are and every one of these departments has a full team. So you've got somebody who's doing the front facing work, but you also have people with management skills and coordinating skills and accounting skills because it's a full blown 360 process. You have to
That's
know
very
how
true.
to manage the money of a campaign. So there are people in accounting, and you got to know if you that's your skill set. You don't necessarily feel like you're the most creative writer, but you've got people that you're relying on to keep you in check about what the budget is for these huge campaigns, right?
That's very, very true. And I don't want anyone to feel that they are limited by age, right?
Mm.
You can always change your career. There are a lot of people, especially in COVID, that I feel have pivoted and changed and said, you know what? I realize that I don't have to do 9 to 5 the way I used to do it anymore. And I think you can follow your passion a little bit there. And entertainment is vast. There's so many opportunities for so many different types of career paths. So I don't want to just make people feel like we're just talking about just coming out of college.
And the void,
I,
yeah.
yeah, I think it's important to say there's so many different career paths and there's so many different facets of marketing that you can uh,
Yeah.
take
And
advantage of,
and no matter where you live, I think the
no matter
trajectory,
where you live.
no matter where you live, you don't necessarily have to try to keep breaking the door down to be one of the 5 to 10 new publicists that get brought in at a studio level. No matter
Exactly.
where you live, there's a theater company. There is
Exactly.
a film festival that has a full publicity department. Every major industry that touches, if there's a tech company, if there's a company doing games, there's all kind of different, if there's a live space venue, they all have publicity that will teach you those skills, and those are all of value when we see that in your portfolio, we see it on your resume. Finding companies to do publicity for locally and being a self-starter will help build your portfolio, help give you the skill set, because it's the same no matter where you go, it's the
It's the
same.
same. That is so true.
Yeah. And so I like that people that you can do it local on your block, and sometimes that will make it even more accessible.
Agreed.
That will be valuable. So, Sony, as we start to wrap this up, I like to talk about mentorship. I like to talk about, because we have so much access to each other, we talk a little bit about what one should look for in a mentor in an internship, if that's the case. But even if you're mid-career, how do you identify that this is the person that's doing things that's going to show me how to do this right way and help encourage me? You know,
I think first and foremost is putting yourself out there and making sure that the person that you want to be mentored by wants to mentor and has the heart to mentor, because not everyone does,
and the time.
right? Or that has the time. So I think that's really important. I think it's a mentorship is a very personal um, relationship, right? And it's finding someone that, as you've taken a look or a step back and looked at their career, they've really been someone to emulate, and that you uh, enjoy, and you've understood their choices, their career path, and they have the heart of giving back. So I feel like for me, I'm very proud to say that Cheryl Boone Isaacs was my mentor. And I love her dearly to this day. Cheryl Boone Isaacs, for those of you that don't know her, Google her. She is the first woman of color that led the Motion Picture Academy. She also, when I started at Paramount Pictures eons ago, she was the executive vice president of worldwide publicity. And she is someone that not only took me, but took the entire department under her wing. Her door was never closed. You could go in and ask her any question. I love people that say, really come in, talk to me about anything. She was that person that had an open door policy. She was also that person that didn't take any idea was a bad idea. Whatever you needed to say, whatever, you couldn't walk in her office and say, I don't have an idea for this movie. That would get you fired. There was always a way or always an angle to go to. So I think having those individuals in your life, or having someone that really has a heart and a passion for wanting to teach and to learn, they'll let you know. I also think putting yourself out there for people that do teach, that people, individuals that maybe teach publicity at schools or seminars or things of that nature, reach out to their teams, even if they're rep by someone else. Ask if they host any type of mentoring sessions or anything like that. And I think it's very important to align yourself with people that are like minded to you.
I love that. That's fantastic advice. Um, I also encourage everyone there are wonderful Facebook pages and online
Hmm.
gathering places where there's something about the PR community that's so family and communal, and everybody helps each other. Everybody bounces on a campaign.
Correct.
Other departments might be more competitive, but in film and television publicity and marketing, you'll go to these amazing Facebook pages that you guys can check out, and everybody's looking for pitches. Hey, Good Morning America is looking for 3 people that's doing, you know, who's doing sustainable text, who the new jeans, who's doing
Correct.
right, and we have a product that we want to make sure every film that's filming in the next 6 months can connect to. Can you help us connect to the publicists of these films? That's a great place to start to learn who's who, and start to get the players in the game and find people to reach out to directly. Social media is really your friend here.
Social media is truly your friend. And again, looking for finding your lane, identifying what really moves you in the area of publicity. And Kimberly and myself, I'd be more than happy to make myself available to you. But
Absolutely.
finding really what you want to do, finding the role that you want to play in marketing and PR, and I'm happy to help you identify that. But it'll take a moment to feel like, maybe you'll go down this road and you say, oh, I thought I wanted to do this, but no, it might be something else. So I just think you have to hone in on what you're good at without be your true authentic self, I'm going to say, when it comes to PR.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I know
You're
you got
welcome.
a super busy day. Making time for us is just, we're really, really grateful. And thank you guys. So Sonia, what movie do you have coming up next, or TV show that you'd like us to look out for?
Oh my God. Well, there's 2 that I just finished that should be out by year's end that you all should pay attention to that were really wonderful. The first was Emmett Till, and the movie is called Till. It's out by MGMUA. That's going to be out this fall, and it's based on the story of Emmett Till. And the second is Regina King, who stars as Shirley Chisholm. And we just finished filming that in Cincinnati. It was amazing to be on set.
Directed by John Ridley.
Directed by John Ridley, who says hello to you, by the way.
That's amazing. And we really are excited for Regina because she made this film come to life. She was
Yes, she did.
behind getting this very important story told and put the team together. So we're
Yes,
really,
she did.
really excited for her. So it's just an honor to get to hear what you guys have been through in making this story finally come to life. And that you made time for us is still amazing. So again, you can find Sony online and read the work that she's done, read the way she writes her press releases, read the information she puts out there. And you can reach any questions that you guys have additionally. We're happy to answer. Catherine's going to explain to you how to connect with us, and Catherine will be the gathering point to get your questions and interest out to us. Sunny,
thank you, everybody.
have a great day.
You too. Thank you
go.
so much. I really enjoy speaking to you, Kimberly.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Sony.
Bye,
You're
Sony.
welcome. Bye-bye.
So I want to, I love some of these things that are coming up, and I'm so glad that she spoke about, I know we saw a couple of things in the chat of people being concerned about age. And I think this is such a great field because nobody's looking at that. If you have something unique to offer that can be part of identifying how to sell something, that's the bottom line in this particular part of the business. And having different perspectives and people who have a different lane and a different perspective on life, whether it's gender, culture, or age, are benefits in the publicity department. I think expanding into film festivals, into local events in your town, every young filmmaker that's making a short film is trying to get it to festival and needs help with a press release, needs help with doing a press book or EPK, and they don't have a lot of money. They might only pay you a couple $100, but that's such a great way to build your portfolio, and it's an entry point. And there's a film festival in every town, and there are people making movies everywhere. And so being able to connect with the independent film scene is such a wide gateway. We need more talent in this space. And it's a way to build your publicity that becomes a natural ladder to bigger projects, bigger, more studio and television based things. So I hope that that encourages everybody to be part of figuring out and filtering through, is publicity marketing good for you? Is you got to be more innovative than anybody in figuring out how to access, because that's the skill set. And it's an interesting journey. So Catherine, were there any other questions that we can cover?
Mostly I just saw the one that, like you mentioned, that was worried about breaking into it, it maybe not being like fresh out of college
Yeah,
age. Yeah, we got a couple comments about that. So it sounds like
absolutely.
really.
Because what were you doing those 54 years that you learned? And so if it's a film about motherhood, or it's a film about family crisis, or I mean, whatever the lane is that you've been doing, that's a skill set. And so understanding how to access point local, and seeing an opportunity where you might not think there is one. This door in this ladder doesn't open up as being the publicist of a show on HBO, right? And so being able to get into local groups and groups that need help. There's always a group out there that needs publicity help. That it's a really cool way of thinking about a different way. The library has a publicity department. Do you know what I mean? And so it could be adjacent to theater. I love local theater. Local theaters always need help. Um, I think youth groups that have entertainment sections, or cultural event, museums, things like that, always have a revolving door, especially things that have a media component. So most museums have film screenings. They have some sort of multimedia engagement. Learning how to start in those publicity departments is a direct rocket ship to film and TV. I hope that's helpful, everybody.
I do see there was one person who was, sort of looking for mentors. So I don't know if you have advice, Kimberly, on maybe how to find
Yeah.
a mentor. It's a good, really good question.
I think there's a couple different first steps that are, obviously we talked a lot about finding the things that you like, whether it's film or television or music, and then start to do the research on the internet of who is the publicist for that. One of the ways to do it is almost every film or TV show has a digital electronic press kit. So if you Google the name of a film and comma publicist, or the name of a television show, comma press kit, chances are something's going to come up in that Google. Or you can go to that production company's website. There's normally a media room. You can start to see who's working on those shows. Then Google that person's name. Sometimes they work in-house. Sometimes they have their own firm. And there's always a hiring season. And so being able to just write a really honest, personal email that really identifies what you are great at. What do you know? What do you uniquely point of view do you have on knitting, or on mechanics, engineering, whatever it is? If you can see where that's a connect road to the kind of content that they're making. Remember, there are a ton of also shows that are in the documentary space, the reality space, and the competition shows. When you see a company like Discovery that's just purchased Warner Media and is about to go global, people who really understand the different lifestyles that are expressed, people who are great at culinary arts, people that are great at renovation, that's somebody who could be a great publicist. If you know a lot about home reno, going into the publicity and knowing that skill set makes sense for Magnolia Network, that you could be part of that publicity team. So as you're looking for who could my mentor be, that's where you got to start. Is who's doing the stuff that has successfully sold to you. Who got you to get on a website, click on a link, and pay for some entertainment? Who got you to get in the car, go into their drive-through, right? Pay to park, pay to get popcorn, pay to get your, red vines, and paid $25 to go in a movie, they successfully market it to you. And so understanding that transaction, that alchemy, will help you figure out who's doing the kind of work that you want to learn from, that fits your value set. If you care about the earth, if you care about sustainability issues, who are those companies? There's a whole campaign in entertainment about encouraging studios and television to be more green and more campaigns. Jump on that campaign. Also, every industry has lobbyists for film and television. So another good way to get in is the publicists for Snapple are always working. They have a division of film and entertainment where their job is to get their product onto set or into on screen. That's a whole different department that leads right to publicity, and then you meet everybody. So there's so many different creative ways to get into finding those publicists that you could learn from. And maybe that means taking a 6-month internship at whatever age to just be in the space with somebody, because the listening and the observing it's an osmosis process when you just got to get in the beehive to see how the beehive kind of cycles is the most critical part of the learning process here. And you don't have to be 18 coming out of high school to be an intern. It's a different place you have to put yourself in a perspective. But if you want to learn and grow and bring your asset into the kind of matrix that can it really fulfill its potential, that's how you got to party. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. So I think, it's kind of up to you to be a detective, like you were talking about earlier, and really do your research and reach out to those people. Yeah.
I think this is a really great space. I thought it was really critical that Sony said it's way more important who you are in the room and your comfortability in just even speaking and talking to her and having a conversation. Going into a space where you don't need to be right, you just need to have ideas. A great personality and somebody that this is a really high stress 24/7 type of a job in some of these categories. And knowing that you've got somebody who's going to be cool, who's going to figure things out, who's fun to be around, those are really important qualities, because you spend a lot of time together, especially traveling in junkets, hotel rooms all day with smelly cheese and warm water. You have to be able to be uplifting and keep everybody encouraged. And that's a certain personality type, right? So I think that that's something to really self-reflect and think about when you're figuring out which part of these lanes could be right for you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I see we got one question. I don't know.
Okay, before I wrap up.
Yeah, just a quick question. Someone wondering if a lot of this work is now done remote or if a lot of it is done in the office nowadays.
Sure.
I don't know what your sense of that is.
What was really great is that a lot of the publicity lifestyle, huge parts of teams work from home all the time anyway, even in the age of fax machines. So post-COVID, you're going to find that even more, that absolutely there's a publicity department that will be perfectly fine with somebody that needs to work at home. And it depends especially if you're working with event management, a lot of that stuff is here. Writing, a lot of the writers never come to the office as long as they get the press releases done. So I just released a film that just premiered on HBO, and Sony was the publicist for that, and she pulled in the publicist that she had mentioned, who lives in London. And one of the reasons it made sense is our director lives in London, and we were also having an international premiere in the UK. And so being able to have both going on at the same time, and they have different skill sets, benefited us greatly. And none of us ever were in the same office. So I do believe that there are some sections where you have to be in person, on hand all the time. But there's a huge part, especially in the marketing side. There's a ton of anybody from advertising space, from ad buying to designing marketing banners for a film, to buy ad space in different websites to promote a release. is really, really, that's all done at home. You don't have to be in a space anymore. People that understand how to build great trailers and marketing materials, graphic designers that specialize in the PR space that come from advertising, or just good layout people who understand color theory and how it makes people feel. These are all really critical pieces of information that go into publicity around film and television. I hope
That's,
that helps.
yeah, no, that's great. There's so many different ways you can take your career. So what's your movie that's on HBO now?
Oh, yes. I have a film that I produced called Uprooted, The History of Jazz Dance, and that's currently streaming on HBO Max. And you can Google it, please do, because Sony ran the campaign and the press that we got all through COVID when we couldn't be in the same space and we couldn't show our film in theaters around the world. Sony was so innovative in the way that she found ways to get our message out, get us interviewed, get reviews of the film, but also now turning to the streamers and continuing to get um, different ways to get people in excited about it. Now that it's on a platform, it's going to be on a platform for a long time. You got to keep the train moving when the studio is now promoting their next thing. And Sony is really genius in the way that she helped people and inspired people to write about our film, and the ways that they were creative with 3 people in 3 different major time zones to do interviews and do Zoom chats that then she made available to film festivals and TV stations and radio, um, to work on their timeline. And they're designed to feel like we're live. And that's really critical skill set that she brought that really changed the way that our film got released. It's really cool.
Very cool. All right. Well, now we know. I'm gonna go check that one out. Yep, Seven says you're gonna watch it.
Well, thanks everybody. Again, on my Instagram is at Hollywood Shorts, or my Twitter at Hollywood Shorts. And I've opened up my DM for all of you who want to reach out and have additional questions. I'll answer as much as I can. And Catherine, thank you again for having us. We love
Thank
being
you.
able to spend this time and share how you guys can come and join us, and what we think is a really great way to spend our days.
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody so much for joining us today. And we hope you enjoyed our program. And a big thank you to Kimberly and Sony for all the great information that they shared and insight and wisdom. And we were so grateful to have everyone with us today. And like I mentioned, this is part of a series that is going on through June. Our next event is just next Saturday, April 30th, and we'll be looking at animation. So you can visit our website, our creative career webpage, lacountylibrary.org/creative-careers. For all of our lineup, and our past programs are on there as well. And if you're interested in participating in more of our upcoming virtual programs, please visit us at lacountylibrary.org, and have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Kimberly.